Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku became the God Hand. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The sky over Muzidafu was a piercing, cloudless blue, the kind of sky that mocked you with its cheerfulness when your world was ending. For Izuku Midoriya, the world ended not with a bang, but with the wet slap of a burned notebook hitting the surface of a koi pond. The carp scattered, spooked by the intrusion of charred paper and broken dreams. Izuku stared at the water, the ripples distorting his reflection, a boy with messy green hair, a too large school uniform, and eyes that were rapidly losing their light. If you want to be a hero that badly, there's a quick way to do it. Katsuki Bakugo's voice still rang in his ears, echoing with the cruel cadence of a jagged knife. Believe that you'll be born with a quirk in the next life, and take a swan dive off the roof. Izuku retrieved the notebook with trembling fingers. Hero Analysis for the Future, number 13. The title was barely legible under the scorch marks. Stupid Kaken, Izuku whispered, his voice cracking. If I actually jumped, that would be instigation of suicide. You couldn't be a hero then. He tried to summon the usual indignation, the usual mumbled analysis that kept him sane, but it felt hollow today. The doctor's words from 10 years ago, "Give it up," felt heavier than usual. The lack of a quirk wasn't just a medical diagnosis. In this superhuman society, it was an existential void. It was being a ghost in a world of gods. He began the walk home, taking the long route to avoid the crowds. He needed the silence. He needed to pretend, just for a moment, that he wasn't the punchline of the universe. As he walked under the concrete arch of an underpass, the shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally. The air grew cold, smelling not of exhaust and city dust, but of something older. Sulfur. Rot. Old blood. Izuku stopped, clutching his backpack straps. The manhole cover a few meters ahead rattled. A villain? The metal lid exploded upward. A deluge of sludge erupted from the sewers, expanding and coalescing into a towering, gelatinous mass. But it looked wrong. Even for a mutation quirk, it looked wrong. The sludge wasn't just green fluid. It pulsed with veins of dark purple energy. Two manic, yellow eyes floated in the muck, but above them, a third eye, red and vertical, seemed to have been carved into the liquid. A medium-sized skin suit. The villain hissed. The voice sounded like it was coming from two throats at once. One human, one guttural and demonic. You'll do just fine. Izuku froze. His legs, usually so quick to run, were lead. The sludge lunged. No! The fluid slammed into him, forcing its way down his throat and nose. It tasted like battery acid and hate. Izuku clawed at the liquid, his fingers finding no purchase. I'm dying, he realized with a detached horror. I'm going to die here, in a sewer tunnel, and no one will know. Have no fear. Why? The grate of the sewer cover flew off with a thunderous clang. A massive figure stood silhouetted against the afternoon sun. Because I am here, All Might. The symbol of peace descended like a thunderbolt. The wind pressure alone pushed the sludge back. Texas. Smash! The punch didn't connect physically, but the shockwave was a solid wall of force. The sludge villain shrieked, a sound that grated against the soul, and scattered into puddles. Izuku gasped, air rushing back into his burning lungs. He looked up, vision blurry, to see the towering blonde figure bottling the sludge into empty soda bottles. All Might? Apologies, young man. All Might's voice was booming, confident. I got a bit distracted chasing this fellow through the sewer system. But you are safe now. This was it. The moment. The question that had burned in Izuku's chest for a decade. He scrambled up, ignoring the slime soaking his uniform. He latched onto All Might's leg as the hero prepared to leap away. Wait! I have to ask you something. The rooftop conversation was a blur of crushing reality. The steam rising from All Might's deflated form. The revelation of the injury. The coughing of blood. And finally, the answer. Pro-heroes are always risking their lives. Some villains just can't be beaten without powers, the skeletal All Might said, his eyes shadowed. So no. I honestly don't think you can become a hero without a quirk. The door to the roof clicked shut, All might was gone. Izuku stood alone on the precipice of the building. The wind tugged at his clothes. He looked over the railing. It was a long way down. Take a swan dive. No, Izuku slapped his cheeks, tears flying. No. Not like that. He turned away from the edge. He was quirkless. He was useless. But he was still alive. He would go home, wash the smell of sludge off his skin, and figure out something. Maybe the police force. Maybe a rescue worker. A massive explosion shook the building. Izuku ran to the edge. Smoke was billowing from the shopping district a few blocks away. His feet moved before his brain could stop them. Check it out. Just to see. Just to take notes. It was a habit he couldn't break. The moth flying to the flame. The Tatooine shopping district was a war zone. Fire ravaged the storefronts, shattering glass and sending civilians screaming. The pro-heroes, Death Arms, Kamui Woods, Empty Lady, were there, but they were paralyzed. I can't get close. Death Arms yelled, shielding his face from the heat. My punches just slide right off him. There's a hostage. Izuku pushed through the crowd, his breath hitching. In the center of the inferno, the sludge villain had reformed. But he was bigger now. The purple veins in his liquid body were throbbing violently, and the third red eye was wide open, weeping black ichor. And in the center of the mass, struggling against the suffocation, was Katsuki Bakugo. Bakugo's eyes were wide with a terror Izuku had never seen before. The explosive boy fired off blasts, but the explosions merely fed the demon-tainted sludge, making it grow hotter, denser. It's my fault, Izuku thought, his heart hammering against his ribs. I distracted All Might. I made him drop the bottles. This is my fault. The heroes were waiting for someone with the right quirk. They were waiting for a savior. But there was no one. All Might had reached his limit. Bakugo's eyes met Izuku's. For a split second, the arrogance was gone. It was just a plea. Help me. The logic in Izuku's brain snapped. The fear vanished, replaced by a singular, blinding directive. Izuku Midoriya ran. You idiot! Stop! Death Arms screamed. Izuku didn't hear him. He sprinted past the police line, his sneakers slapping against the melting asphalt. He had no plan. He had no power. He only had the desperation of a boy who refused to watch his friend die. You again? The sludge villain roared, the demonic second voice vibrating the air. I'll swallow you whole this time. Izuku threw his backpack. It was a pathetic projectile, but the metal buckle struck the villain's pulsating red eye. The monster flinched. The grip loosened. Kaken! Izuku clawed at the sludge, his fingers digging into the mire to find purchase on Bakugo's school jacket. Deku? Bakugo coughed, smoke pouring from his mouth. What the hell are you doing? My legs moved on their own. Izuku screamed, tears streaming down his face, mixing with the ash. I couldn't just stand there and watch you die. Grah! The villain recovered and raged. The sludge shifted, hardening. It wasn't fluid anymore. It formed a jagged, obsidian-like blade on the end of a tendril. Die, you pest! The blade swung. Izuku saw it coming. He shoved Bakugo deeper into the sludge, trying to push him out the other side, throwing his own body in the path of the strike. He raised his right arm in a futile attempt to block. I'm sorry, Mom. The sound was wet and sickening. A shriek followed by a crunch. The world went white. Then red. Izuku hit the pavement hard. He tried to push himself up, but his balance was wrong. He looked to his right. His shoulder ended in a ragged, gushing stump. His right arm, the arm he used to write his notes, the arm he used to reach for All Might, was lying 5 feet away, severed at the bicep, sinking into the burning mud. DKU! Bakugo screamed, a sound of pure horror. The pain didn't hit immediately. It was a cold shock, a sudden disconnect from reality. Izuku stared at his severed limb, his mind unable to process the data. Fresh meat. The sludge villain laughed, the demon eye spinning wildly. A sacrifice. Yes, Undra will be pleased with this blood. The obsidian blade raised again, aimed at Izuku's neck. Izuku couldn't move. The blood loss was already making the edges of his vision gray. He looked up at the monster, waiting for the end. And then, the music changed. It wasn't literal music, but the atmosphere of the alley shifted instantly. The oppressive heat of the fire vanished, replaced by a cool, swaggering pressure. The sound of heavy boots crunching on glass echoed through the chaos. "Man," a voice drawled, sounding bored and annoyed. "I stopped for 5 minutes to get a burger, and I walk into a demon barbecue. Can't a guy catch a break?" A figure stepped between Izuku and the villain. He didn't look like a hero. He wore no spandex, no cape. He was dressed in a rugged white coat, blue jeans, and combat boots. His hair was messy and brown, and he had the stubble of a man who had spent weeks on the road. On his right arm, he wore strange, golden braces that encased the limb from fingers to shoulder, held together by brown leather straps. "Who are you?" the sludge villain bellowed, swinging the blade down. "Die." The stranger didn't flinch. He didn't even look up. He simply swayed his torso to the left, the blade missing him by a millimeter. The movement was so fluid it looked like he had slipped through the frames of reality. "Who am I?" the stranger smirked. He cocked his fist back. The golden braces on his arm began to hum, emitting a soft, ethereal glow. "Just a guy who hates ugly bastards like you," the stranger punched. It wasn't a smash. It was a jab. A simple, straight right. Crack. The sound was like a cannon shot. The air pressure from the fist blew the flames backward. The sludge villain's hardened blade shattered into dust. The force of the blow traveled through the sludge, creating a shockwave that rippled through the monster's liquid body. What is this power?" the villain gargled, backing away. It's holy. Holy? Nah, the stranger dusted off his coat. "It's just the god hand." He turned to look at Izuku. The man's eyes were sharp, assessing. He looked at the bleeding stump, then at the severed arm in the mud, then at Izuku's face. "Hey, kid," the man said, ignoring the monster behind him. "You got guts. Jumping in to save your buddy when you're weaker than a wet paper bag. I like that. Izuku tried to speak, but blood coughed up. "Run, run?" the man laughed. He turned back to the villain, who was reforming for a massive strike. "I don't run. I dance." The villain attacked with a barrage of sludge tentacles. The stranger moved like water. He weaved, ducked, and backflipped with impossible grace. It was a mockery of combat. He was toying with the monster. "God real," the stranger whispered. A spectral roulette wheel seemed to spin in the air above the stranger's head. It clicked rapidly before stopping on a skull icon. 4. The stranger produced a spectral baseball bat out of thin air. He swung it with casual violence. Connect. The sludge villain's head, demon eye and all, was launched cleanly off his liquid body. The sludge exploded outward, splashing harmlessly against the buildings. The demon presence screamed, a high-pitched wail that faded into nothingness as the purple energy evaporated. Bakugo fell out of the muck, coughing and retching, unharmed. Silence descended on the street. The fires still burned, but the battle was over in 10 seconds. The stranger sighed and rolled his shoulder. "Demons getting weaker these days. Engra really is scraping the bottom of the barrel." He turned and walked over to Izuku. The pro-heroes were rushing in now, shouting commands, but the stranger ignored them. He crouched down beside the dying boy. Izuku's vision was tunneling. He felt cold. So cold. "Kid," the stranger said, his voice dropping the playful tone. "You're dying." Izuku nodded weakly. "I know. You lost your arm trying to save that loud mouth over there." The stranger pointed a thumb at Bakugo, who was staring in shock. "Was it worth it?" Izuku looked at Bakugo. He was alive. "Yes," the stranger smiled. It was a sad, tired smile. "Yeah. I figured you'd say that. You remind me of, well, me. Before I got smart." The stranger looked at his own right arm, the golden, armored limb. He lifted it, flexing the fingers. The metal hummed, a sound like a choir of angels mixed with the revving of an engine. "I'm tired, kid," the stranger said quietly. "I've been walking this earth for a long time beating up demons. I've spanked gods, kicked devils, and saved the world twice. But this arm, it needs a host with a fire in their belly. It needs someone who won't break under the weight of the world." He placed his golden hand over Izuku's heart. "My name is Jean," the drifter said. And I'm officially retiring. What? This is going to hurt, Jean said. More than getting your arm cut off. But if you survive, you won't be helpless anymore. Jean grabbed his own right shoulder with his left hand. He gritted his teeth. A blinding golden light erupted from his body. Transfer! Jean roared. With a sickening tear that sounded like the fabric of the universe ripping, Jean pulled. His right arm, the god hand, detached from his body. But there was no blood. Only pure, blinding light. The arm dissolved into a stream of golden energy, heavy and dense. Jean slammed the energy into Izuku's severed shoulder. Aya! Izuku screamed. It felt like molten lead was being poured into his veins. It felt like his soul was being stapled back together with lightning. The pain was absolute. It transcended nerve endings and assaulted his very concept of self. He saw things. A man in a blue suit laughing. A woman with a whip. A fat demon eating a sandwich. A dragon made of fire. Don't you dare pass out. Jean's voice echoed in his mind. Accept it. It's yours now. The power to defy God and devil alike. The golden light solidified. Leather straps materialized. Metal braces clamped down. Izuku's back arched off the pavement. The scream died in his throat as his system went into shock. The last thing he saw before the darkness took him completely was Jean, now missing his right arm, giving him a thumbs up with his left. Don't act like a chump, kid. And then, nothing. Mizudafu General Hospital. Consciousness returned in waves of antiseptic smell and the steady beep of a heart monitor. Izuku opened his eyes. The ceiling was white. Standard hospital tile. Izuku! His mother's face hovered over him, tear-streaked and swollen. She looked like she had aged 10 years in 10 hours. Mom! His throat was dry as sandpaper. Oh, thank goodness. You're awake! Inko Midoriya collapsed onto his chest, sobbing uncontrollably. I thought I lost you. The doctor said the blood loss, and the shock. Izuku blinked, his memories slowly slotting back into place. The sludge villain. The fire. The pain. The arm. He tried to sit up. His body felt heavy, aching all over. But his right side felt anchored. He looked down. Resting on the white hospital sheets was not a stump, nor a prosthetic. It was a human arm, muscular and tan, encased in intricate golden braces. 2 heavy gold rings shackled the forearm and bicep, connected by thick brown leather straps. On the back of the hand, a circular emblem glowed with a faint, pulsing blue light. It was massive. It looked too big for his scrawny frame, yet it felt perfectly natural. He wiggled the fingers. The golden metal moved like a second skin. The doctors, they don't understand it, Inko sniffled, pulling back to look at the limb with a mix of fear and awe. They said when they brought you in, the arm was already there. They tried to x-ray it, but the machine broke. They did a DNA test. Izuku, the arm shares your blood type, but the cellular structure is dense. It's like steel. It's the God Hand, Izuku whispered. The name came to him instinctively. What? The man. Jean. He gave it to me. The police are looking for him, Inko said, stroking Izuku's hair. Witnesses said a drifter fought the villain and then vanished. There was no trace of him. Just you? The door to the room slid open. I am here, a voice said, lacking its usual boisterous volume. All Might stood in the doorway. He wasn't in his muscle form. He was the gaunt, skeletal figure Izuku had met on the roof. He wore a baggy yellow suit that hung off his sharp bones. All Might. Inko gasped, standing up. Mrs. Midoriya. All Might bowed low. I am here to apologize. Your son was injured because of my negligence. I dropped the villain. I failed to contain the situation. You saved him, Inko wiped her eyes. That's all that matters. Could I have a moment with young Izuku? All Might asked gently. Inko looked at her son. Izuku nodded. It's okay, Mom. She squeezed his left hand, his normal hand, and stepped out, closing the door softly. All Might walked to the bedside. He pulled up a chair and sat down heavily. He looked tired. More tired than any hero should look. I saw the news, All Might said softly. I saw the footage. You ran in. Even after I told you it was impossible. Even without a quirk. My legs just moved, Izuku said, staring at the god hand. I know that feeling, All Might smiled, a small trickle of blood escaping his mouth. Top heroes have stories about that. Their bodies moving before they can think. All Might looked at the golden arm. His eyes narrowed slightly. Young Midoriya, that arm. When I look at it, One for All resonates. It hums. One for All? My quirk, All Might whispered. The power passed down from generation to generation. I came here today with the intention of proposing something to you. I was looking for a successor, someone with the heart of a hero. You proved you have that heart. Izuku's breath hitched. He wants me? But All Might continued, his gaze fixed on the golden braces. I cannot give you my power. Izuku's heart plummeted. Why? Because your cup is already full. All Might pointed to the god hand. That is not a quirk, is it? No, Izuku shook his head. A man named Jean, he grafted it onto me. He said it was called the god hand. God hand. All Might tasted the words. It feels ancient. Chaotic. One for All is a power of stockpiled order and justice. But that thing on your shoulder, it feels like a wild animal. If I gave you One for All, the conflicting energies might tear you apart. All Might stood up and placed a hand on Izuku's left shoulder. You don't need my power, Izuku Midoriya. You have been given a gift by fate. A heavy one. All Might's blue eyes bored into Izuku's. That arm. I can sense it. It has the potential for great destruction. It could crush this hospital in an instant if you let it. Izuku looked at the gold medal. He clenched the fist. He could feel it. A reservoir of power that felt bottomless. It wasn't just strength, it was attitude. The arm wanted to punch something. It wanted to break limits. I'll master it, Izuku said, his voice surprisingly steady. Jean, he saved me. He trusted me with this. I won't let him down. And I won't let you down. All Might grinned, shifting into his muscle form for just a second, a flash of the symbol of peace. I believe you. You have the spirit. But remember, having the arm doesn't make you a hero. It's what you do with it. All Might reached into his pocket and pulled out a card. Recover. Then, come find me at UA High. I may not be able to give you my quirk, but I can certainly help you train that body to handle whatever that is. All Might left the room with a laugh that sounded genuinely hopeful. Izuku was alone again. He lifted the god hand. It was heavy, but his shoulder muscles were already adapting, the graft seemingly reinforcing his skeletal structure. He remembered Jean's words. Don't act like a chump. He looked at the burnt notebook on the bedside table, which his mother must have salvaged. He opened it to a blank page. He grabbed a pen with his left hand. He'd have to learn to write with his left. The right hand was too large for delicate penmanship now. He wrote a new entry title. God Hand Analysis. 1. Super Strength. 2. Invulnerability. 3. Roulette. Izuku closed his eyes. He focused on the arm. He felt the hum. Tension gauge, a whisper in his mind said. A spectral bar appeared in the corner of his vision, currently empty. Izuku grinned. It was a fierce, feral grin that didn't quite belong on his face. It was Jean's grin. I'm not quirkless anymore, he whispered to the empty room. He clenched the god hand. The golden braces shined, and for a brief moment, the heart monitor skipped a beat, not out of medical failure, but out of fear. The drifter was gone. The green boy remained. And the game was just beginning. The first thing Izuku Midoriya learned about the god hand was that it was heavy. Not just physically heavy, though the golden braces and the dense, magically reinforced bone structure certainly added a few kilos to his right side. It was heavy in intent. It was like carrying a loaded shotgun that constantly whispered, "Pull the trigger." The week after his release from the hospital was a blur of adjustment. The doctors were baffled. The grafting wasn't surgical, it was metaphysical. The nerves of the golden limb had fused seamlessly with his own, yet they felt hotter. Electric. When he wiggled his fingers, he didn't just feel the air, he felt the friction of the universe. School was interesting. He walked into Aldera Junior High with his right arm in a sling, concealed under a modified, larger uniform jacket. The whispers started immediately. Midoriya lost his arm? I heard a villain ate it. Man, quirkless and now an amputee? That's rough. Katsuki Bakugo sat at his desk, feet up, scowling. When Izuku walked past, Bakugo didn't explode. He didn't yell. He just stared at the sling. For the first time in their lives, Bakugo looked unsure. He had seen the golden light in the alley. He had seen the drifter. He knew something had happened that defied the logic of quirks. Deku, Bakugo grunted as Izuku sat down. Kaken, Izuku replied. He reached into his bag with his left hand to pull out a notebook. The hell is under the jacket? Bakugo's voice was low, threatening, but laced with curiosity. A prosthetic, Izuku lied. It was the cover story All Might and the police had agreed upon. A high-end, experimental support item provided by the state for victims of villain attacks. Bullshit, Bakugo sneered. I saw that light. That wasn't technology. That was weird. He reached out, his palm crackling with nitroglycerin, intending to grab Izuku's shoulder, a classic intimidation tactic. Wham! Before Bakugo's hand could make contact, Izuku's right arm, still in the sling, shot up. The movement was faster than the eye could track. The back of Izuku's concealed hand cracked against Bakugo's wrist, knocking the explosion away with a dull thud. The class went silent. Izuku blinked, looking at his own arm in horror. He hadn't told it to move. It had just reacted. Bakugo stared at his wrist, which was already bruising. He looked at Izuku, his eyes wide. My body moved on its own, Izuku whispered, echoing his words from the sludge incident, but this time, it terrified him. The arm hummed against his ribs. It felt satisfied. 2 weeks later, the warehouse. All Might had suggested to go to Municipal Beach Park for training. It was filled with trash, perfect for building muscle. No, Izuku had said, standing in the sand, looking at a rusted truck. This isn't right. Not right? All Might, in his skeletal form, tilted his head. Young Midoriya, you need to build your vessel. That arm is powerful, but the rest of you is, well, noodle-like. It's not about lifting, Izuku said, clutching his golden arm. The god hand, it gets bored. Bored? If I just lift trash, it gets heavy. It hurts. My shoulder burns. But when I shadow box, when I move fast, it feels light. It wants to hit things, All Might. It doesn't want to clean. It wants to fight. So, they moved to an abandoned shipping warehouse in the industrial district. It was a cavernous space, dusty and filled with empty crates, old tires, and hanging chains. It was here that Izuku found the manual. He had been clearing a space on a workbench when he found a small, battered leather book. It smelled of cheap cigars and stale beer. It definitely hadn't been there a moment ago. Izuku opened it. The handwriting was scrawled, messy, and bold. The God Hand Guide, How Not to Be a Chump, by Jean. Forward, if you're reading this, you probably have my arm. Congratulations. You also probably have a lot of demons wanting to turn your skin into a rug. Sucks to be you. This book contains the basics. Don't die. All Might. Look at this. Izuku waved the book. All Might squinted at the pages. Step 1. Spank them until they cry? Young Midoriya, is this appropriate hero training? It's an instruction manual for the arm. Izuku's eyes shone. Look, it explains the mechanics. Izuku read aloud, his voice trembling with excitement. The God Hand isn't a quirk. It's a tension-based reality warper. It feeds on guts and style. If you fight like a coward, the arm is just a heavy paperweight. If you fight with style, dodging, taunting, countering, the tension gauge fills up. When the gauge is full, you can unleash the roulette. Roulette? All Might asked. God techniques, Izuku read. Summoning dragons, hitting home runs, slowing down time. But be warned, if you use the God Hand too much without building tension, it will eat your stamina. You'll pass out. The key isn't hitting hard, it's hitting fast and not getting hit at all. All Might rubbed his chin. So, hit, don't get hit. That's just boxing. No, Izuku turned the page. It's called the God Sway. Month 3, the Sway. Training began in earnest. It wasn't standard hero training. There were no push-ups. Izuku could do a one-arm push-up effortlessly with the God Hand, but his left arm would collapse. Instead, All Might built a machine, a chaotic pendulum of swinging logs and tennis ball launchers. Dodge! All Might yelled, firing a baseball at Izuku's head. Izuku stood in the center of the warehouse. He wasn't wearing his school uniform anymore. He wore a teal tank top and loose cargo pants, his red sneakers squeaking on the concrete. The golden arm was exposed, the blue sigil on the back of the hand glowing faintly. The ball flew at his face. Izuku didn't block. He didn't duck. He simply swayed. He leaned his torso back, his feet planted. The ball whizzed past his nose, disturbing his hair. Swoosh. 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 Faster! Izuku yelled. He was grinning. He couldn't help it. The adrenaline was different now. Before, fear was cold. Now, fear was fuel. All Might cranked the machine. Tennis balls flew like bullets. Izuku entered a trance state. The god sway. He bobbed, weaved, ducked, and sidestepped. Every time a ball missed him by a millimeter, he felt a spike of energy in his chest. A spectrometer in the corner of his vision, the tension gauge, ticked upward. Mississippi, Mississippi, miss. Ha! Izuku laughed, a sound that was a little too sharp, a little too arrogant for the polite boy he used to be. Is that all you got? You're boring me. All Might paused the machine, eyebrows raised. Young Midoriya? You sound different. Izuku blinked, the glow fading from the arm. He slumped, the cocky grin vanishing instantly, replaced by his usual anxious expression. Sorry. I didn't mean to be rude. It just came out. The arm influences the personality, All Might noted. Fascinating. It demands confidence. When you fight, you channel the original owner. It feels like I'm watching myself from a third-person perspective, Izuku admitted, rubbing the golden medal. Like I'm playing a video game. Well then, All Might grinned. Let's level up. Month 6, the moveset. Physical conditioning was brutal, but technique was where Izuku shone. He had always been an analyzer. He memorized hero moves. Now, he memorized Jean's moves. The warehouse echoed with the sounds of impact. Wham! Mach speed jab! Izuku shouted. His right arm became a blur. It wasn't one punch, it was 50 punches in the span of 3 seconds. The punching bag All Might had bought, reinforced with steel plates, disintegrated. Crack! High side kick! Izuku pivoted, launching his leg up. While his legs weren't superpowered like the arm, the god hand provided a bizarre counterbalance, allowing him to defy gravity. He could kick, spin, and land with the grace of a breakdancer. And then, there was the specific training. Okay, Izuku read the manual. Next move, ball buster. All Might choked on his water. Excuse me? It says it's a critical technique for stunning armored opponents, Izuku said with a straight face. You kick them in the, groin. We are not practicing that on me, All Might said firmly. We need a dummy. They built a wooden dummy. Izuku practiced the timing. Block, sway, crouch, kick. It was dirty fighting. It was street brawling. It was the antithesis of All Might's Texas Smash heroism. But it worked. The god hand isn't about honor, Izuku muttered, wiping sweat from his forehead. It's about survival. Demons don't fight fair. So I won't either. Month 10, the beach. The morning of the entrance exam arrived. Izuku stood at the edge of Dagoba Beach. He hadn't cleaned it, but he had used it. There were craters in the sand. There were piles of scrap metal that had been twisted into sculptures of grotesque demons, practice targets. All Might stood beside him. You're ready, the hero said. You haven't mastered one for all, because you don't have it. But you have mastered that. Izuku looked at his arm. The leather straps were worn from use. The gold was polished. He flexed, and the metal plates shifted with a satisfying clack-clack. I'm going to UA, Izuku said. And I'm going to be the first hero to spank a villain into justice. All Might burst out laughing. Please don't phrase it like that in the interview. UA High School entrance exam day. The sheer scale of UA was intimidating. The glass towers reflected the blue sky, casting long shadows over the hundreds of hopeful students streaming through the gates. Izuku wore his middle school uniform, but under the jacket, his right arm was wrapped in bandages to hide the gold. He didn't want to draw attention until it was necessary. Out of my way, Deku. Bakugo shouldered past him. He looked tense. Good luck, Kaken, Izuku said. Bakugo stopped. He looked back. Usually, he'd scream. He'd threaten. But he just clicked his tongue. Don't die, Goldfinger. It was the closest thing to encouragement Izuku had ever received from him. Izuku took a deep breath and stepped forward. His foot caught on a slightly raised paving stone. Gravity took hold. I'm falling. Classic Deku. Whoa there! He didn't hit the ground. A hand touched his backpack, and suddenly he was floating. Are you okay? A girl with a round face and brown hair smiled at him. It's bad luck to trip, you know. Izuku floated upright as she released her quirk. He looked at her. Usually, he would blush. He would stammer. He would be a mess. But the arm hummed. Tension gauge. Low, thanks, Izuku said. He flashed a smile, a Jean smile. Gravity quirk? That's handy. Saves on airfare. The girl blinked, surprised by the easy banter. Oh. Yeah. I'm Uraraka Ochako. You seem calm. Aren't you nervous? Nervous? Izuku adjusted his backpack straps. Nah. I just hate written exams. I prefer the punching part. Wow, Uraraka's eyes sparkled. You must be really strong. Good luck. She waved and walked away. Izuku stood there, his heart pounding. Did I just talk to a girl without vomiting? The God hand really is a miracle. The written exam was standard. Izuku breezed through it. All those years of analysis paid off. The only issue was writing with his left hand, but he had practiced enough that his kanji was legible, if a bit shaky. The practical exam briefing. Present Mike screamed. The screen showed the robots. 1-pointer, 2-pointer, 3-pointer. And the 0-pointer. Avoid the 0-pointer. Present Mike shouted. It's just an obstacle. Run away! Excuse me. A tall boy with glasses and engines in his calves stood up. This pamphlet says there are 4 robots. If this is a mistake, you should be ashamed. And you, he pointed a stiff finger at Izuku. You've been tapping your foot the entire time. It's distracting. If you're here to mess around, leave. Izuku stopped tapping. He hadn't realized he was doing it. The arm was impatient. I'm not messing around, Izuku said, his voice carrying clearly across the auditorium. I'm just keeping the beat. The beat? The glasses boy frowned. The rhythm of the fight, Izuku said. You'll hear it soon enough. The auditorium murmured. Who was this kid? Battle Center B. The gates to the mock city were massive. The other examinees were stretching, activating quirks, looking nervous. There was a guy with laser navel, the gravity girl, the engine boy. Izuku took off his school jacket. He tied it around his waist. He began to unwrap the bandages on his right arm. 1 layer. 2 layers. The gold caught the sunlight. A few students nearby gasped. Whoa, is that a support item? It looks heavy. Is he a cyborg? The bandages fell away. The God hand gleamed, the blue sigil pulsing. Izuku rotated his shoulder. Clack. Hiss. Start. Present Mick's voice blared from the tower. There are no countdowns in real battles. Go! 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 The crowd hesitated. Izuku didn't. He launched himself forward. He wasn't using a speed quirk, but his legs were conditioned by hellish training, and the momentum of the arm pulled him forward. He was the first one through the gate. A 1-pointer, a 1-wheeled drone, rolled out from an alley. Target acquired. First blood, Izuku grinned. He didn't stop running. He slid on his knees, ducking under the robot's machine gun fire. As he slid past, he lashed out with the God hand. Uppercut. The metal fist connected with the robot's chassis. It didn't dent, it shredded. The robot was launched 10 feet into the air, spinning wildly, before exploding into scrap. Tension gauge 1. 1 point, Izuku counted, scrambling up. 3 2-pointers, scorpion types, appeared on the main street. Izuku ran at them. Is he crazy? A student yelled behind him. He has no range. Izuku engaged. Sway. Duck. Weave. The mechanical tails stabbed at him. Izuku moved like he was made of smoke. He sidestepped the tail, grabbed it with the god hand, and yanked. Get over here! He swung the two-pointer by its tail like a flail, smashing it into the other two robots. Metal screeched against metal. Sparks showered him like confetti. Tension gauge 3. He dropped the scrap and dusted his hands. Too slow. Observation room. The teachers watched the screens. Interesting. Midnight licked her lips. That boy, no quirk registry? Midoriya Izuku, Nisa said, sipping tea. Registered quirkless. But he filed a request to use a grafted artifact. We allowed it under the support item clause, but that doesn't look like technology. It's not, Cementos frowned. Look at the way he moves. No wasted energy. He's a martial artist. But the force behind those hits, that arm is exerting pressure equivalent to a strength enhancer. He's racking up points, Snipe noted. 28 combat points in 3 minutes. He's not using flashy area of effect attacks. He's hunting them down one by one. It's predatory. Aizawa Shota watched the screen silently. He saw something the others didn't. He saw the smile. He's enjoying it, Aizawa muttered. He's not fighting to pass. He's fighting because he likes the violence. Battle Center B. 42 points. Izuku yelled, jumping off a wall and delivering a drop kick to a three-pointer's head. The robot crumbled. He was panting now. The god hand was heavy. The adrenaline was high, but his stamina was draining. The manual warned him. God power burns calories like a furnace. He needed to end this. Hey! Watch out! Izuku turned. Uraraka was cornered by 2 three-pointers. She looked exhausted, nauseous. Izuku didn't think. He utilized the chain yanker. A spectral golden chain shot out from the god hand, latching onto the nearest street lamp. Izuku yanked, pulling himself through the air like a slingshot. He landed between Uraraka and the robots. Hey, ugly! Izuku taunted, pointing at the robots. He slapped his own butt. Kiss this. The robots paused, their AI confused by the non-combat action. Tension gauge full. The bar in Izuku's vision turned a burning gold. The words God Roulette flashed. Get back, Izuku told Uraraka. But, I said move. Izuku raised his right arm. God. Charge. He held the fist back. The arm began to glow with blinding intensity. The air around him distorted. The sound was like a jet engine winding up. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. The robots lunged. Izuku punched. Charge punch. He hit the air. The shockwave was visible, a cone of distorted space that blasted forward. It hit the 2 robots and disintegrated them instantly. The force continued, blowing out the windows of the building behind them and carving a trench in the street. Uraraka's jaw dropped. Izuku shook his arm. Smoke rose from the braces. 48 points. That should be enough. Then, the ground shook. Boom, boom. The other examinees stopped fighting. They looked towards the city center. A shadow fell over them. The 0-pointer. It was bigger than a skyscraper. It was a moving mountain of green metal. Its mere movement crushed buildings. Dust clouds billowed around its treads. Run! It's huge! There's no point fighting that. The students fled in a panic. It was a stampede. Izuku turned to run. It was the logical choice. He had the points. He passed. Ow! A cry of pain. Izuku stopped. He looked back. Uraraka was trapped under rubble. A piece of a building, dislodged by the 0-pointer's tread, had pinned her leg. The massive robot was looming over her, its tread seconds away from crushing her. The other students were gone. Logic says run, Izuku thought. Jean says, don't be a chump, Izuku whispered. He turned around. He ran toward the monster. Observation room. He's going back? All Might gasped. Young Midoriya. He can't fight that, Midnight said, standing up. We need to stop the robot. Wait, Aizawa said. Look at the arm. Battle Center B. Izuku sprinted. His lungs burned. His legs screamed. He reached Uraraka. He grabbed the rubble with his god hand and tossed it aside like it was styrofoam. Can you walk? He shouted. My ankle. Uraraka grimaced. The shadow of the 0-pointer's foot descended. It was going to crush them both. Izuku looked up. It was too big to punch. It was too big to kick. I need a miracle. He looked at his tension gauge. It was empty. He had used it all on the charged punch. Damn it! Izuku screamed. He stepped between Uraraka and the descending metal plate. He raised the god hand to catch it. He knew it would crush him. He wasn't strong enough. Do you want to win? The voice wasn't Jean's. It was deeper. Ancient. Yes. Then bet it all. Grovel. Izuku dropped to his knees. He slammed his forehead into the pavement. I'm sorry! Izuku screamed at the robot. Please forgive me. I'm just a student. I don't want to die. Uraraka stared at him. What are you doing? It was the ultimate joke move. The grovel. In the game, begging for your life filled the tension gauge. It worked. The sheer audacity of the action, the pathetic display in the face of death, tricked the universe. Tension gauge, max? God roulette unlocked. Izuku snapped his head up. His eyes were glowing blue. His hair floated as if underwater. Just kidding, Izuku grinned maniacally. He stood up. The robot's foot was 10 feet above him. He activated the roulette. Time stopped. Literally. The world turned gray. The falling debris froze in midair. The robot halted. A golden roulette wheel appeared in front of Izuku's face. It spun rapidly. God stomp? No. Home run God? No. La Bomba? No. The wheel clicked. Click. 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 It stopped on a symbol, a lightning bolt, falling thunderbolt. Time resumed. Izuku pointed a finger at the sky. Judgment from above. He roared. The sky split open. There were no clouds, but a bolt of blue lightning, thick as a train car, slammed down from the heavens. It didn't hit Izuku. It hit the zero-pointer. KRKOM. The sound was deafening. The light was blinding. The electricity arced through the massive robot, frying its circuits instantly. The metal groaned, glowed red, and then melted. The force of the strike blew the robot backward. The massive machine tipped over, crashing away from Izuku and Uraraka with an earth-shattering thud. Silence returned to the testing ground. Izuku stood there, his fingers still pointing at the sky. Smoke curled from his fingertip. Did I do that? Izuku blinked. The god hand hissed. The gold braces were searing hot. The blue light faded to a dull gray. System, overheat. Izuku slurred. His eyes rolled back in his head. He collapsed face first into the pavement. 1 week later, Izuku sat at his dining table. He stared at the fish for dinner. He couldn't eat. Izuku, honey, stop worrying, Inko said, placing a teacup down. You did your best. I passed out, Izuku mumbled. I got 0 rescue points because I knocked myself out. I probably destroyed too much property. They're going to bill us. The letter is here. Inko shouted, running in from the mailbox. She slapped the envelope on the table. Izuku stared at it. Yue High School. He went to his room. He sat at his desk. He tore the envelope open. A holographic disc fell out. It activated. I am here as a projection. All Might appeared on the tiny screen. He was in a yellow suit. Young Midoriya. You have waited long. But the results are in. All Might. You passed the written exam with flying colors. But the practical? You destroyed 48 points worth of villains. Impressive. But that is not all. The screen changed. It showed video footage of Uraraka in the interview room. He saved me. At the very end. He summoned lightning or something. Please, can you give him some of my points? He risked his life for me. Izuku's eyes watered. Heroism is not just about fighting villains. All Might declared. It is about saving people. Izuku Midoriya. For your act of self-sacrifice against the zero-pointer, you are awarded 60 rescue points. Total score, 108 points. All Might leaned into the camera. You found a power that wasn't yours, and you made it your own. You didn't act like a chump. Come, young Midoriya. This is your hero academia. The hologram faded. Izuku looked at his right arm. He clenched the fist. I did it, he whispered. I'm in. The god hand hummed, warm and steady. And somewhere, in the back of his mind, he heard a faint, distinct voice. Level 1 cleared. The uniform of Yue High School was a slate gray blazer with dark teal trimmings. It was prestigious. It was iconic. It was also, Izuku Midoriya discovered, a complete nightmare to put on when your right arm weighed 40 pounds and was encased in unyielding golden metal. Stop wiggling, Izuku muttered to his own limb as he tried to thread the sleeve. The school had provided a modified uniform with a wider right sleeve and reinforced stitching, but the god hand had a mind of its own. It didn't like being covered. It felt like putting a muzzle on a dragon. Eventually, he managed it. He looked in the mirror. The gold braces were hidden, but the bulk was undeniable. He looked lopsided. He looked like a hero. Izuku! You're going to be late. Inko's voice drifted up from the kitchen. Coming, Mom! He grabbed his yellow backpack. As he swung it over his shoulder, the golden arm twitched, sending the bag flying into the ceiling fan with a deafening crunch. Izuku stared at the broken fan blades spinning lazily to a halt. Jean's voice, nice aim, kid. That fan was looking at you funny. Izuku sighed, grabbing the battered bag from the floor. I'm going. Yui High Class 1A. The door to Class 1A was massive. A barrier designed for giants, or perhaps for egos that hadn't yet learned to fit through standard doorways. Izuku stood before it, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs. This is it. The hero course. He remembered the entrance exam. The lightning. The crushing weight of the zero-pointer. The sheer, intoxicating rush of the god roulette. He had passed. He belonged here. Do I? The doubt whispered. I'm still the quirkless kid. I just have a borrowed weapon. Jean, quit whining. Kick the door down. I am not kicking the door down, Izuku mumbled. He reached out with his left hand, his human hand, and slid the door open. The classroom was already loud. Remove your foot from that desk. It is disrespectful to the upperclassmen who crafted it, and the janitors who clean it. Ha! Shut up, Four Eyes. What are you, a furniture salesman? Izuku froze. The nightmare duo. Tenya Ida, the stiff engine boy from the exam, and Katsuki Bakugo, the explosive bully of his childhood. Bakugo was leaning back in his chair, feet on the desk, looking like he owned the building. When the door opened, his red eyes snapped to Izuku. For a second, the classroom went silent. Deku, Bakugo growled. The name wasn't a slur anymore. It was a question mark. Bakugo was staring at Izuku's right arm, hidden under the blazer. He was remembering the alleyway. The golden light. The way Izuku had swatted his explosion aside like a fly. Good morning, Kaken, Izuku said, his voice steadier than usual. The heavy metal on his shoulder acted like a grounding rod for his anxiety. You. Ida marched over, his movements robotic. You are Midoriya, correct? I am Tenya Ida from Semi-Private Academy. I heard, Izuku smiled nervously. I must apologize. Ida bowed at a perfect 90-degree angle. I misjudged you at the entrance exam. You perceived the true nature of the test, the rescue points, while I was blinded by the superficial objective. You are a superior candidate. Oh, no, hey. It's the falling boy. Ochako Uraraka popped up behind Ida, beaming. You got in. I was so worried. Your arm, is it okay? You blew up that giant robot with lightning. Lightning? A boy with yellow hair and a black streak perked up. Seriously? That sounds wicked. I heard he has a strength enhancer, a red-headed boy added. It's not a quirk, Bakugo muttered, loud enough for only Izuku to hear. It's a trick. If you're here to make friends, pack up and leave. The voice came from the floor. The class froze. Lying in the doorway, encased in a bright yellow sleeping bag like a metamorphic caterpillar, was a man with tired eyes and messy black hair. He sipped a juice pouch with the enthusiasm of a man on death row. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down, the man said, unzipping the bag and standing up. He wore black fatigues and a capture scarf. Time is limited. You kids aren't rational enough. He reached into his sleeping bag and pulled out a stack of blue gym uniforms. I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa. Put these on and meet me on the grounds. Grounds. The sky was painfully blue. The air was crisp. It was a perfect day for physical education, or for having your dreams crushed. A quirk apprehension test? The class shouted in unison. But what about orientation? The ceremony? Uraraka asked. If you want to be a hero, You don't have time for frilly ceremonies, Aizawa deadpanned. His eyes scanned the students, lingering for a fraction of a second on Izuku's right arm. The sleeve of the gym uniform was tight against the braces, revealing the outline of the heavy metal and leather straps. Yui is known for its freestyle traditions. That applies to the teachers as well. Aizawa tossed a softball to Bakugo. Bakugo. You finished first in the entrance exam. In middle school, what was your best result for the softball throw? 67 meters, Bakugo scoffed. Try it with your quirk. Bakugo stepped into the circle. He stretched his arms. He glared at Izuku. Watch this, Deku. This is real power. Dai-ai. Boom. The ball rocketed into the sky, propelled by a massive explosion. 705.2 meters, Aizawa read from his device. The class erupted. Awesome. We can use our quirks? This is gonna be fun. Fun? Aizawa's eyes narrowed. The air temperature seemed to drop. You have 3 years to become heroes. You think it's going to be fun? Right. Let's make it interesting. The student with the lowest total score across all 8 events will be judged to have 0 potential, and will be expelled. Expelled? Uraraka shrieked. That's not fair. It's the first day. Natural disasters aren't fair, Aizawa said, his hair floating slightly. Villains aren't fair. It is our job to correct that unfairness. Go beyond. Plus ultra. Izuku swallowed hard. The lowest score. He looked at his classmates. Engines. 0 gravity. Explosions. Creation. He looked at his right arm. I can't control the output. If I use 100%, I break my bones or pass out. If I don't use it, I'm just a fit teenager. Gene, then don't use 100%. Use technique. The God Hand isn't a hammer, kid. It's a Swiss Army knife of pain. Event 1 50-meter dash. Ida vs. Ajri. Ida clocked in at 3.04 seconds. Ajri at 5.58. Midoriya vs. Bakugo. Izuku stepped to the line. He crouched. Ready. The gun fired. Bakugo launched himself with explosions behind him. Blast Rush Turbo. Izuku didn't have a speed quirk. But he had the God Dash. It wasn't magic. It was the sheer, uneven weight of the arm creating a pendulum effect. He threw his right arm forward with every stride, the heavy gold pulling his body through the air like a battering ram. Thud. 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 He crossed the line. 7.02 seconds, the robot announced. 4.13 seconds, Bakugo sneered at him from the finish line. Slow, Deku. Better than middle school, Izuku panted. He was faster. The arm's passive strength had reinforced his legs and core just to keep him upright. Event 2, grip strength. Izuku took the dynamometer in his left hand. 56 kilograms. Average. He switched it to the God Hand. He didn't even squeeze hard. The metal of the machine groaned. Crunch. The device shattered into plastic shrapnel and twisted metal springs. Izuku held up the remains. Do I get a score for this? Error, the machine beeped. Mizo Shoji, who had just scored 540 kilograms, looked at the pile of dust in Izuku's hand. Dude, Event 3, standing long jump. Izuku used the typhoon kick logic. He spun in the air, using the centrifugal force of the heavy arm to extend his jump. He cleared the sandbox. Not flying, but falling with style. Event 4, repeated side steps. This was harder. The arm threw off his center of balance. He looked like a drunk man trying to dance. Gene, loosen up. Use the drunken twist. Izuku let his body go limp, swaying erratically. He moved fast, but he looked ridiculous. Mineta laughed. Event 5, the ball throw. This was it. The moment of truth. Uraraka went before him. She touched the ball. It floated. Infinity. Good luck beating that, Ciro whispered. Midoriya, Aizawa called. Izuku walked to the circle. His heart was pounding. He had been getting by on physical stats, but to stay out of last place, he needed a monster score here. He needed to use the roulette, but the roulette required tension. I have no tension. I haven't hit anyone. I haven't dodged anything. He stood in the circle. He looked at the ball. I have to use the smash. Just one finger. Like All Might said, he activated the power. The blue sigil on the god hand flared. The veins in his arm glowed like molten gold. Smash! He threw the arm forward, but just as he released, the power vanished. The gold turned dull. The arm felt like lead. The ball flew. 46 meters. What? Izuku stared at his hand. Where did the power go? I erased it. Izuku turned. Aizawa stood there, his scarf floating, his eyes glowing a piercing red. His hair stood on end. That entrance exam, Aizawa said, his voice dripping with disdain. You destroyed the 0-pointer. But you damaged yourself in the process. You passed out. A hero who needs saving after one attack is a liability, Mr. Aizawa. From what I can tell, you can't control your quirk. You rely on an all-or-nothing release. Aizawa blinked. His hair fell. However, he frowned. Why didn't your arm change? Huh? Izuku blinked. I erased your quirk factor, Aizawa said, looking confused. Usually, mutation types or transformation types revert or weaken. But your arm. The energy signature vanished, but the arm itself remained exactly the same. It's not a quirk, sir, Izuku said quietly. It's an arm. Aizawa stared at him. Logic dictated that Aizawa could erase any quirk function. He had erased the emission of energy, but he couldn't erase the existence of the artifact. It's a grafted artifact, Izuku explained, lying slightly to match the school records. I can't turn it off because it's not me. It's stuck to me. Aizawa rubbed his temples. Great. A hardware issue. Listen, Midoriya. If you try to use that explosive power again and break your bones, I will expel you. Find another way. He tossed the ball back to Izuku. One more try. Izuku caught the ball. Find another way. He couldn't use the charged punch or the Shaolin blast without tension. He couldn't use the one-for-all style smash because Aizawa would erase it, or trying to force it would break him. He needed physics. He needed Gene. Gene, hey, Einstein. Why are you throwing it? It's a ball. Izuku looked at the ball. He looked at his heavy, steel-toed red sneakers. Gene, what's the best move for small, round objects? Izuku grinned. It was a feral grin. He dropped the ball. Midoriya? Uraraka gasped. He dropped it. As the ball fell past his waist, Izuku spun. He planted his left foot. He swung his right leg. The god hand swung behind him as a counterweight, adding terrifying torque to his hips. He channeled the technique. The ball buster, usually reserved for sensitive areas of anatomy. But today, the softball was the victim. Thwack. The sound was like a gunshot. Izuku kicked the ball right as it hit the sweet spot of his kinetic chain. The ball deformed against his sneaker, then launched into the stratosphere at Mach speed. It left a vapor cone. Izuku spun 360 degrees from the force of the kick and landed in a pose, one hand on his hip, the other pointing at the sky. Home run! He shouted. Aizawa looked at the device. He blinked. He tapped the screen. 702 meters. He showed the screen to Izuku. Izuku clenched his god hand. I didn't break anything, sir. Except maybe the ball. Aizawa's lips curled into a terrifying smile. Good. The aftermath. Izuku didn't come in last. That honor went to Mineta, though Aizawa revealed the expulsion was a logical ruse, a lie that nobody believed, but everyone accepted with relief. But the tension in the air was palpable. Bakugo hadn't spoken since the ball throw. He just stared at Izuku, his hands twitching. The next day, Hero Basic Training. I am here! All Might burst through the door in his Silver Age costume. Coming through the door like a normal person, it's All Might. The class cheered. Today! Battle training. All Might flexed. And for that, you need these. Shelves slid out from the wall, revealing numbered cases. Costumes. Get changed and meet me at Ground Beta. Ground Beta, the locker room. Izuku opened his case. He had sent in his design weeks ago. His mother had tried to sew a green jumpsuit, but he had modified it heavily after receiving the god hand. He pulled it out. It was green, yes. But it was rugged. Dark green cargo pants with steel-plated shin guards. A teal sleeveless compression shirt that showed off the scarred tissue where the gold metal met his flesh. and over it, a white, high-collared vest that mimicked Jean's drifter coat, but cropped for mobility. He wrapped a red scarf around his neck, a homage to the hero he wanted to be. Whoa, Midoriya! Kirishima, the redhead, whistled. That's a manly look. You look like a brawler. Thanks. Izuku adjusted his gloves. He wore a glove on his left hand, but his right, the god hand, was bare. It needed to breathe. Bakugo slammed his locker shut. He wore his grenade gauntlets. He didn't say a word. He just walked out. Battle trial. All Might explained the rules. Heroes versus villains. Nuclear weapon recovery. The first match. All Might pulled 2 balls from a box. Heroes, Team A, Midoriya Uraraka. Villains, Team D, Bakugo Ida. Izuku froze. Of course. Bakugo turned to him. His mask covered his eyes, but the malice was palpable. Prepare to get hurt, Deku. The building. This is bad, Uraraka whispered. They were sneaking through the first-floor corridors. Bakugo is really scary. He's going to come for me, Izuku said. He tapped the side of his head. I know him. He won't care about the bomb. He wants to prove he's better than me. So what do? We split up. You go for the weapon. I'll distract him. But I can take him, Izuku said. He wasn't sure if it was true, but the arm felt hot. The tension gauge, currently at 0, flickered in his vision. Boom! The wall next to them exploded. Izuku shoved Uraraka aside. Go! Bakugo emerged from the smoke, dust swirling around his grenades. Found you. Uraraka hesitated, then ran towards the stairs. Good luck, Deku! Don't look away! Bakugo lunged, leading with a right hook fueled by a massive explosion. Izuku didn't block. Blocking Bakugo hurt. Jean sway. Izuku leaned back. The explosion singed his eyebrows, but the fist missed. Swoosh. Bakugo stumbled, surprised by the dodge. He spun for a backhand. Izuku ducked. Swoosh. Stop dodging and fight me! Bakugo roared. I am fighting! Izuku stepped into Bakugo's guard. He didn't punch. He slapped. Slap. A quick, disrespectful backhand to Bakugo's cheek. It didn't hurt much, but the insult was nuclear. Tension gauge 1. You bastard! Bakugo ignited both palms. The fight dragged into the hallway. Bakugo was a whirlwind of fire and force. Izuku was annoying. He used the drunken twist. Every time Bakugo aimed, Izuku seemed to stumble. He tripped over his own feet only to accidentally shoulder-check Bakugo into a wall. He spun like a top, letting Bakugo's blast sail harmlessly past him. Mississippi, Mississippi, miss. Tension gauge 3. Tension gauge 5. Why won't you use your quirk? Bakugo screamed. Use the fancy lightning. Use the smash. Are you underestimating me? I'm not. Izuku panted. He was getting tired. Dodging took stamina. The god hand was heavy. I'm trying to figure out how to beat you without killing you. Kill me? Bakugo snapped. You think you can kill me? Bakugo stopped. He pulled the pin on his gauntlet. If you won't fight seriously, I'll make you. Young Bakugo, stop. All Might's voice crackled over the comms. Are you trying to kill him? That blast will bring the building down. He won't die if he dodges. Bakugo pulled the trigger. A massive blast of concentrated fire roared down the hallway. It filled the space. There was nowhere to dodge. No sway could avoid this. Izuku's eyes widened. I can't tank this. Jean roulette. I don't have enough tension. I need one more bar. The fire was feet away. Izuku did the only thing he could think of. The most shameful, tactical, genius move in the God Hand manual. Grovel. Izuku dropped to the floor. He curled into a ball. He smashed his forehead against the concrete. I'm sorry, Kaken. You're the best. Please don't kill me. The scream was pathetic. It was loud. It echoed. It confused the hell out of Bakugo. For a split second, Bakugo hesitated. The aggression faltered. Is he begging? The hesitation caused Bakugo's aim to drift slightly upward. The main force of the blast scorched the ceiling, blowing out the windows and filling the hall with smoke, but missing Izuku by inches. Audience bonus! Pathetic display. Tension gauge, max. Izuku stood up from the smoke. He wasn't crying. He was grinning. The blue light on his hand flared. The god roulette wheel spun in his vision. Just kidding, Izuku said. Bakugo's eyes widened. You, Uraraka! Izuku touched his earpiece. Where are you? I'm at the weapon. But Ida cleared the room. He's guarding it. Grab onto something. What? Izuku looked at Bakugo. I can't beat you in a quirk fight, Kaken. But I can beat the architecture. He raised the god hand. He didn't aim at Bakugo. He aimed at the ceiling directly above them. The roulette clicked. Charge punch. Smash. Goes the weasel. Izuku punched upward. K-doom. It wasn't just a punch. It was a column of kinetic force. The ceiling disintegrated. The floor of the room above disintegrated. On the floor above, Ida was monologuing to Uraraka. I am the ultimate evil. Suddenly, the floor beneath Ida vanished. Wah! Ida fell through the hole, crashing down into the hallway between Izuku and Bakugo. Debris rained down. Uraraka, floating near the ceiling of the room above, stared at the massive hole. The weapon was now unguarded. Comet home run! Uraraka shouted. She grabbed a pillar debris, swung it, and sent rocks flying at the captured weapon to knock it over, then hugged it. Captured! All Might shouted. Hero team wins! Silence in the hallway. Ida groaned, rubbing his head. That was excessive. Bakugo stood frozen. He looked at the hole in the ceiling. It was 5 feet wide, perfectly circular, punched through reinforced concrete like it was wet tissue paper. He looked at Izuku. Izuku was leaning against the wall, clutching his right shoulder. The arm was smoking. His tension was gone, leaving him exhausted. I told you, Izuku wheezed, sliding down the wall to sit on the floor. I wasn't looking down on you. I was looking up. Bakugo trembled. He didn't explode. He didn't scream. He just stared at the golden arm that had defied his worldview. What are you, Deku? Bakugo whispered. Izuku looked at the god hand. I'm just a guy. Izuku smiled weakly. With a really heavy right hook. The bus ride to the unforeseen simulation joint, USJ, was a rattling cage of teenage energy. The vehicle hummed over the highway, carrying 20 aspiring heroes towards what was supposed to be a lesson in rescue operations. Izuku Midoriya sat near the back, his right arm resting heavily on his lap. The golden braces were cool to the touch today, the leather straps creaking softly with every bump in the road. He stared out the window, watching the city blur into the green of the mountains, but his mind was elsewhere. The god hand was quiet. Too quiet. Usually, the arm had a passive presence, a low-frequency hum that vibrated against his ribs, a sense of restless energy like a dog waiting for a walk. But today, as they approached the isolated facility, the arm felt alert. The blue sigil on the back of his hand pulsed with a slow, rhythmic throb. Danger, it seemed to whisper. Or maybe just excitement. Midoriya-chan, a croaking voice broke his reverie. Izuku jumped, turning to see Tsuyu Ajiri staring at him with her large, unblinking eyes. Why yes, Ajiri? Call me Tsuyu, she said bluntly. I say what's on my mind. Your power, it's weird. The bus went silent. Everyone turned to look. It's not like a quirk, Tsuyu continued, tapping her chin. Quirks are biological functions. Like Bakugo's sweat or my tongue. But that arm, it feels like it has its own heartbeat. And during the battle trial you talked to it. I wasn't talking to it. Izuku stammered, waving his left hand. I was just psyching myself up. It's a support item. A very advanced, very attached support item. It's manly though. Eijiro Kurishima chimed in, hardening his own arm. Whatever it is, it packs a punch. My hardening can take a hit, but watching you punch through a concrete ceiling? That was crazy. If that's not a quirk, then you must have muscles made of titanium under there. It's a mysterious power. Mina Ashido cheered. Like a cursed artifact from a video game, Izuku forced a smile. She's closer to the truth than she knows. In the front seat, Aizawa shifted in his sleeping bag. Quiet down. We're here. The bus hissed to a halt. The massive dome of the USJ loomed ahead, gleaming under the sun. It looked like a sanctuary. Izuku's arm twitched violently. A sharp spike of heat shot up his shoulder, making him wince. Jean's voice. Heads up, kid. The circus is in town. Inside the USJ-13, the space hero was giving a speech about the fragility of life and the dangers of uncontrolled power. It was inspiring. It was heroic. It was interrupted by the sound of electricity dying. The lights in the massive dome flickered and buzzed. The central fountain sputtered. A cold wind swept through the plaza, carrying a scent that made the hairs on Izuku's neck stand up. It wasn't the smell of ozone or dust. It was the smell of sulfur and old, dried blood. Gather together and don't move, Aizawa shouted, his voice losing its usual lethargy. 13. Protect the students. What's that? Kirishima pointed toward the central fountain. Is this like the entrance exam? Has the lesson started already? Down below, in the center of the plaza, a tiny purple dot appeared in space. It expanded, swirling into a massive vortex of black mist. But it wasn't just mist. From the void, shapes began to emerge. Human shapes, yes, thugs with pipes and knives. But mixed among them were creatures that defied explanation. There were men wearing leather masks and spiked collars, their skin a sickly gray. There were women in tattered, provocative carnival outfits, wielding whips that crackled with purple energy, and towering over them were hulking brutes with skin like red clay, wearing wrestling masks. They didn't look like villains. They looked like monsters from a heavy metal album cover. Don't move! Aizawa snapped, putting on his goggles. Those are real villains. The dread in the air was palpable. The students froze. Villains? Mineta shrieked. How did they get in? The alarms. They must have a quirk that jams sensors, Momo Yayorosa deduced, her face pale. Izuku stepped forward, clutching his right arm. The god hand was hot now. Burning hot. The metal braces were almost searing his skin. Gene demons. Low-level punks, mostly. But there's a nasty smell coming from the big guy. Izuku looked at the center of the horde. A man with pale blue hair and hands covering his face stood there. Shigaraki Tamura. And beside him was a creature that stopped Izuku's heart. A towering beast with black skin, an exposed brain, and a beak-like mouth. It stood motionless, like a statue carved from nightmares. Where is he? Shigaraki scratched his neck, his voice carrying an eerie, dry rasp. We went through all this trouble, and All Might isn't here? Maybe if we kill a few kids, he'll come out to play. Aizawa leaped into action. His capture scarf lashed out, grabbing 3 thugs. He pulled them in, slammed their heads together, and erased the quirk of a 4th villain trying to shoot him. But then, a creature in a red wrestling mask charged him. Aizawa's eyes glowed red. Erasure. The creature didn't stop. It roared, a sound that wasn't human, and swung a massive spiked club. Aizawa dodged barely, the wind of the swing cutting his cheek. It didn't work, Aizawa realized, eyes widening. I erased his quirk factor, but nothing happened. Is it a mutation type? No. It feels like he doesn't have a quirk at all. Sensei! Izuku shouted. Stay back! 13 ordered. We need to evacuate. The purple mist, Kurojiri, expanded, warping space around the students. I cannot allow that, the mist said politely. We are the League of Villains. And we are here to extinguish the symbol of peace. Bakugo and Kirishima lunged. Bet you didn't count on us. Explosions and hardened fists struck the mist. It did nothing. Begone. The mist engulfed them. Izuku felt the floor vanish. He reached out with the god hand, trying to grab something, anything. Uraraka! Deku-kun! Gravity inverted. The world spun. The shipwreck zone. Izuku hit the water hard. The cold shock knocked the breath out of him. He sank, the heavy gold arm pulling him down like an anchor. Heavy. Too heavy, he thrashed, his left arm paddling frantically. He managed to breach the surface, gasping for air. He was in the artificial lake. Midoriya! Tsuyu swam past him, grabbing him with her tongue and tossing him onto the deck of a sinking ship. Mineta was already there, shivering and crying. We're gonna die. We're gonna die. Mineta wailed. Calm down. Izuku coughed up water. He shook his right arm, water dripping from the gold. We need to assess the situation. He looked over the railing. The water was swarming, villains were circling the ship. But mixed in with the aquatic quirks were things. Mermen? No. They looked like humanoids made of slick, green scales, holding tridents that glowed with malice. Fishmen demons. Those aren't normal villains, Izuku muttered. My arm, it's reacting to them. Reacting how? Tsuyu asked, sticking to the wall. It wants to purify them, Izuku said. The word tasted strange in his mouth, but it felt right. A villain with a shark quirk leaped out of the water. Die, kids! Izuku didn't think. The tension gauge in his vision flickered from blue to yellow. Jean, batter up. Izuku didn't have a bat. But he had a metal arm. As the shark villain lunged, Izuku stepped forward. He didn't punch. He swung his arm horizontally, palm open, in a massive backhand swat. Smack. It wasn't a fleshy sound. It was the sound of a home run. The villain was launched. Not just knocked back, launched. He skipped across the water surface like a stone, bouncing 3 times before crashing into the distant wall of the zone. Minetta's jaw dropped. Did you just slap him into next week? They're coming up the side. Tsuyu warned. 3 fishmen demons climbed over the railing. They hissed, their eyes glowing yellow. They didn't speak, they just emanated a desire to kill. Minetta! Throw your sticky balls into the water. Izuku commanded. Why? Just do it. Create a net. Minetta screamed and started throwing. Tsuyu grabbed Izuku and jumped high into the air. Now, Midoriya-chan. Izuku looked down at the cluster of demons and villains in the water below. Jean, La Bamba. What? Jean, do a cannonball, kid. Make it splash. Izuku grinned. He clutched his knees to his chest. The god hand began to glow with a fierce, golden light. The air around him distorted. God. Stamp. He uncurled at the last second, slamming his right fist and right heel into the water simultaneously. Boom. The impact was like a depth charge. A massive column of water erupted into the air. The shockwave stunned every villain in the pool. The fishmen demons shrieked as the holy energy from the splash burned their scales like acid. The water churned, pushing the stunned villains together. Minetta's sticky balls, floating in the chaos, bound them all into a massive, groaning ball of defeat. Tsuyu landed gracefully on the shore, carrying Minetta and Izuku. That was effective, Tsuyu noted. Izuku stood up, steam rising from his arm. We need to get to the plaza. Mr. Aizawa is in trouble. How do you know? Because Izuku looked toward the center of the dome, where flashes of red and black were visible. The boss is waiting. The central plaza. Eraserhead was losing. He was a hero who specialized in quick takedowns and erasing advantages. But he was fighting an army. And worse, half the army didn't follow the rules of biology. He kicked a thug in the face, but a whip wrapped around his ankle. One of the female demons, a dominatrix type named Conchita's minion, yanked him down. Naughty hero, she giggled, her voice distorted. Time for discipline. Aizawa cut the whip with his knife, but the Nomu was there. The massive creature moved with speed that belied its size. It smashed Aizawa into the ground. Aizawa tried to erase its quirk, but the strength was raw. It was physical. Crack. Aizawa's arm snapped. Shigaraki laughed. You're cool, Eraserhead. But you're not the final boss. Game over. Shigaraki reached out. His hand hovered over Aizawa's face. Decay. Get away from him. A green blur rocketed into the plaza. Izuku Midoriya didn't stop running. He leaped over the fountain, his right arm cocked back. Smash! He threw a punch at Shigaraki. Shigaraki turned, eyes wide. He didn't dodge. He raised his hand to catch the fist. I'll turn you to dust, brat. The pale hand of the villain met the golden fist of the hero. Time seemed to freeze. Shigaraki's quirk activated. The gray rot spread from his fingers. It touched the golden braces of the god hand, and then it stopped. The gold didn't rust. It didn't crumble. Instead, the blue sigil on the back of Izuku's hand flared with blinding light. Rejection. A shockwave of divine energy blasted Shigaraki back. The villain tumbled, clutching his hand. Gah! It burns! Shigaraki screamed, scratching at his own palm. The skin where he touched the god hand was blistered, as if he had touched a holy relic with unclean hands. What is that? It's not a quirk, it's a glitch. A cheat code. Izuku landed between Shigaraki and the broken form of Aizawa. He was panting, terrified, but the arm held him steady. "Don't touch my teacher," Izuku growled. The voice was deeper. Jean was close to the surface. "Midoriya." Aizawa wheezed, blood running down his face. "Get out." "Nomu," Shigaraki hissed, standing up. "Kill the cheater. Crush that arm." The Nomu turned its soulless gaze to Izuku. It shrieked, a sound like metal tearing, and charged. Izuku had analyzed All Might. He knew about speed. But the Nomu was fast. Faster than eyes could track. Wham! Izuku was sent flying. He crashed into the stairs, the stone cracking behind him. Pain, his ribs felt bruised. But he was alive. He had blocked at the last second with the God Hand. The arm was fine. The rest of him was rattling. "Jean, this guy is a sponge. He absorbs impact. Punching him is like punching a pillow." Izuku staggered up. The Nomu was charging again. "Shock absorption," Izuku muttered. "If I hit him, the force gets dispersed. So I don't hit him with force." He assumed the stance. Feet wide. Left hand open, right hand clenched. "Jean, use the Shaolin Blast. Don't hit the skin. Hit the spirit." The Nomu swung a fist the size of a boulder. Izuku ducked. Sway. He stepped inside the Nomu's guard. He was chest to chest with the monster. Open palm. Izuku drove the palm of the God Hand into the Nomu's exposed gut. Shaolin Blast. There was no sound of impact. Instead, there was a hum. A ripple of golden light traveled from Izuku's shoulder, through his arm, and into the Nomu. The shockwave didn't disperse on the skin. It exploded out of the Nomu's back. Boom! The Nomu's eyes widened. It gagged. The force bypassed the shock absorption completely, rattling its internal organs. The beast stumbled back, clutching its stomach. He hurt it? Shigaraki scratched his neck furiously. He hurt the anti-All Might weapon? That's impossible. The game is broken. The devs are lying to me. I'm not a dev, Izuku spat, raising his fists. The tension gauge was rising. I'm the player. Suddenly, the ground shook. From the warp gate, more shadows emerged. Not thugs. Demons. Real ones. A tall, lanky demon with blades for arms, blade. A fat, bouncing demon breathing fire fats. And a trio of small, annoying imps with electrified spears. Angra is watching, the blade demon hissed. That arm, it belongs to us. The demons ignored the other students fighting in the distance. They ignored Aizawa. They focused entirely on Izuku. Izuku was surrounded. Nomu in front. Demons on the flanks. This is bad, Izuku whispered. I can't fight all of them. My stamina. The God Hand was heavy. His human muscles were burning. He was just a boy. Jean, you scared kid? Izuku, yes. Jean, good. Fear keeps you moving. But right now you don't need to move. You need to dance. A spectral hand, translucent and blue, appeared on Izuku's left shoulder. Then a spectral head. Jean. Wearing sunglasses and a smirk, floating like a stand behind Izuku. Jean, let's turn on the cheats. God mode. Izuku felt a click in his soul. The restraint on the arm vanished. The gold braces opened up, gears shifting and expanding. The blue light turned into a blinding, holy white fire. Izuku threw his head back and roared. God real, unlocked. His green hair spiked up, turning a brilliant, shimmering gold. His eyes lost their pupils, glowing with pure divine energy. An aura of invincibility wrapped around him, music swelling from nowhere. A fast-paced surf rock guitar riff that echoed through the entire USJ. What is this music? Mineta screamed from the shore. It's his theme song. Kirishima yelled, fighting off a thug. Izuku moved. He didn't run. He glitched forward. He appeared in front of the blade demon. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. 100 fists of fury. Izuku's right arm became a literal blur. He landed 100 punches in 3 seconds. The blade demon didn't even have time to scream before it exploded into purple dust. The fat demon breathed fire. Izuku walked through it. Invincible. He grabbed the fat demon by the horns. Suplex! He slammed the massive creature into the concrete, shattering the floor of the plaza. The Noma roared and charged. God mode. Izuku turned. He didn't look scared. He looked bored. You're big, Izuku's voice echoed, layered with genes. That just means you make a bigger target. The gnome threw a punch. Izuku caught it with one hand. The shockwave dusted the area, but Izuku didn't budge. Dragon kick! Izuku released the hand, spun, and delivered a vertical kick that defied physics. His foot caught the Nomu under the chin. A spectral golden dragon roared as the kick connected. The Nomu was launched straight up. Through the glass roof of the USJ. Into the stratosphere. Tension gauge, empty. The music stopped. The gold hair faded back to green. The aura vanished. Izuku stood in the center of the cratered plaza, smoke rising from his shoulders. He swayed. System, offline, he mumbled. Shigaraki stood alone. His army was broken. His Nomu was in orbit. His demons were dust. You! Shigaraki trembled. You cheated. You're a cheater. No, a deep voice boomed from the entrance. The doors to the USJ were blown off their hinges. I am here. All Might stood there. He wasn't smiling. He was furious. But then he saw the scene. The defeated villains. The safe students. And young Midoriya standing in the center of the chaos, his golden arm shining like a beacon. All Might blinked. Or perhaps I am late? Shigaraki looked at All Might, then at Izuku. The warp gate opened behind him. Kurojairi, Shigaraki whispered. Get us out of here. This quest is bugged. Wait. Izuku took a step forward, but his legs gave out. He fell to his knees. The mist swirled around Shigaraki. Next time, hero. Next time, I'll bring the devil himself. The villains vanished. Silence returned to the USJ. The students rushed from the zones. Deku! Uraraka cried, running to him. Midoriya! Kirishima slid down the embankment. That was the manliest thing I have ever seen. You turned gold. You punched a monster into space. Is he okay? Tsuyu asked, looking at Izuku's prone form. All Might leaped to the center, landing softly beside his student. He checked Izuku's pulse. He is alive, All Might announced, relief washing over his face. Just exhausted. The boy used every drop of spirit he had. Izuku opened one eye. The god hand was dull gray now, entering a cooldown state. All Might. Izuku whispered. Yes, my boy, did I win? All Might looked at the shattered plaza, the dust of the demons, and the hole in the roof where the Nomu had exited. He smiled, his signature grin returning. You didn't just win, young Midoriya. You cleared the level. Izuku smiled weakly. Jean's voice, not bad, kid. But work on your landing. You look like a dork. Izuku closed his eyes and let the darkness take him, the sound of his classmates cheering fading into a well-earned rest.